Hey, welcome, jerks. We've got a special show tonight. We're talking about a Massachusetts State Police recruit who didn't make it home from training, and his family has a lot of questions. And we've discussed it on the show in the past. We just discussed it the other night with a retired North Carolina highway patrolman. You heard what he had to say. Tonight, we have some special guests to talk about it. We have, first of all, Brian from LTL Media. He's been covering this for a long time. He has the billboards up. He's been a big champion for this family to get answers and to get the support. And I love what Brian's been doing. So we're going to have Brian on the show tonight, as well as his friend from the Massachusetts State Police, retired Todd McGee, who's also spent a lot of time on the shows, mine a couple of times and Brian's a lot of times, talking about Enrique Delgado-Garcia and what the family's going through. And tonight we have a state senator named Michael Moore, who is here tonight. He wrote a letter to the Attorney General about it. I'm bringing all three of these guys up. It's my honor to be hosting this tonight with these three guys. Let's do this. So let's bring up Brian from LTL, Todd McGee, and Senator Michael Moore. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good evening.
Where do we want to start? Why don't we start with the letter that Senator Michael Moore.
Can I jump in one quick statement, Mike?
Yes.
I love how you start your show where you reference your listeners as the jerks.
I'm not so young anymore, though.
It was just comical to hear you refer to them that way.
They love it. They love they're jerks. We're all jerks. I'm so serious about this tonight, and you're right in on the jokes. I love it. Our chat. I gotta look at our chat. Our chat must be cracking up right now.
They are.
They are. We are jerks. That's what they're saying. We are jerks. Let me put myself on the bottom of the screen. Oh, this is going to be fun tonight. But it's also a difficult subject because we know there's a family here that lost a loved one, and they're looking for answers. And I just, we got the letter up. Tell us about this letter, why you wrote it, what it means.
Well, what it means is that we had someone who, according to the family, when we met with them, his dream was to give back to the community, and in that way was to become a state trooper, and then from there eventually move on to become an attorney, staying active in the community. He started off at the district attorney's office, and everyone loved him there. You don't hear anyone with anything bad to say about this young man. And so the letter is really to try to help the family and all of us. I want to say all of us, but more so the family cope and understand what happened. Law enforcement is a very dangerous job. The training can be dangerous, but as where the state is the trainer, we have to make sure whatever training's done is done appropriate with all the safeguards and is up to date. Now, all of us, even the family, myself, none of us are experts in this field. And when you have a tragedy that takes place, I think it's incumbent upon us, and with our responsibility to our constituents and to the people of Massachusetts, to make sure that a training is appropriate. And by having this investigation and asking for an independent investigator, really is trying to show that we want to make sure that people don't have any doubt when this investigation is done on the accuracy and the truthfulness of this. And I don't mean this to be any disrespect to the state police or anything like that, but sadly, we've all seen what's over the last several years has been a lot of bad publicity. And the last thing we want is to have them conduct it and then a report come out. And if it exonerates the training program or exonerates them, people still may have a question. What was it, a cover up? So look, let's get it. Let's get the appropriate professionals to investigate it, determine if there was something that was an accident, if there was something that was really negligent in the training, and one to, is boxing an appropriate training for law enforcement. I know the state police had training I think it was, they had training, then they boxing, then they stopped it sometime in the 80s, then they picked it up again. I don't think there's any other police academy in the Commonwealth that has any boxing. So, what's appropriate for the mission, for the job. And then the other issue that was the importance with the language was there were some other cadets that came out that made some allegations of discriminatory practices, hazing, those types of practices. So we want to make sure, again, that when we're sending law enforcement officers out there, they themselves have not been victims of some sort of inappropriate treatment and training, because that's going to affect how they enforce the law or how they interact with the public. So the three of us, myself, Senator Robin Kennedy, and Senator Peter Durant, who represent the areas of Worcester, we have constituents. We have to work with the family, and we empathize with them, and we just want to make sure everything's investigated. We have a responsibility to the public to make sure that nothing is trivialized, and the family can get some answers.
Absolutely. Brian, do you want to comment on any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with the senator. And by the way, Senator Moore, thank you for joining us this evening. This is a huge step in trying to get justice for Enrique Delgado-Garcia. Myself here, I'm an independent journalist here in the state of Massachusetts. I found about this case since its inception, back on September 13th when this happened, 172 days ago. We're almost at 6 months in this. And I decided to look into this. And I think the thing that has been very frustrating, along with myself and my friend there, Todd McGee, has joined me on many panels on my channel to just give us some insights of, what goes on inside the Mass State Police, part of the boxing program. Todd actually ran the boxing program for many years at the academy. For me, it just something didn't sit right in this whole thing. And going back to, like I said, it was very frustrating because there wasn't a lot of information that came out. And if it was something, in my opinion, that was, I guess, cut and dry, and I hate to use that in this situation, I would have felt we would have heard a report at least 2 to 3 weeks. And then we start hearing, like you said, cadets coming forward with some allegations of possible racism that was going on, hazing. Even Enrique Delgado-Garcia himself made comments to his family through his training of those same comments. And then here we go. This is something that is brought up in the media, and then it's dropped. We're looking at 90 days, and there's no report. So I felt like I needed to do something. So I took out a couple of billboards right out in front of Gillette Stadium. We ran them for 2 months. I created a website so people can get quickly informed and write, our governor, write the attorney general, and donate directly to the family if they'd like to do that, support them in any way. I've even reached out to David Meyer's office many times. I got one response. I've reached out to Maury Healy and the attorney general, Andrea Campbell, multiple times a day, just letting them know that the public is watching and we want answers, as to what happened. And then we just got an update here in the last couple of weeks that David Meyer has hired on some former FBI agents to his team to investigate this. To me, it just seems like there's a lot more going on here. I do know of the video. I have spoken to the family. I have contact with them. I saw the photos and photos that I never want to see again of Delgado-Garcia's injuries. And it just didn't add up. It didn't add up to me. And I appreciate your effort in doing this because we have to continue, in my opinion, to rattle the cage here and get some answers. We can't send great, outstanding citizens that want to come in to our law enforcement agencies and do the right thing And, from what I've known and gotten to know about Enrique, he was a good guy. And I've had so many of his friends and family members reach out and just say, you don't realize how great this man was and what a great job he would have done. So I want to make sure, the public wants to make sure, and Massachusetts wants to make sure that when we send citizens off to be law enforcement, in our law enforcement agencies here in Massachusetts, that they're safe, and something like this can never happen again.
Thank you, Brian.
Actually, Todd, before you jump in on something, I just want to follow up on Brian. That was one of the reasons we sent the letter where the time had elapsed. And, when we sent the letter, we knew that we weren't going to get a lot of information back about the investigation, because these investigations can go, if they're looking into the death, it could go to, if there is extreme negligence, it could go to a criminal. There could be civil liability somewhere. And look, and in all due respect to the family and with empathy to them, I'm hoping this investigation comes out where they exonerate everyone so that we know nothing inappropriate happens. But so when the AG responded back to us that they couldn't give us a lot of information, we understood that, but I really thought that they could have given us a little bit more as far as we haven't even got back yet. Are they just investigating the death, or are they also investigating the culture that went on there? So we're still waiting for that. They said they'd give us some updates as the time goes on. But I agree with you that the three of us, myself and the other two senators, wanted the AG's office to know that we're not going to let this rest, or we're going to try to stay abreast of what's going on and to make sure the investigation is completed. Sorry, Todd.
Todd, yes.
Yeah, real quick, and
Right.
Senator, with all due respect, if there are people that are responsible for this death, they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. This can this can never happen again.
I agree with you, but I was just referring to the fact that when they're doing these interviews, people are going to lawyer up.
Of course.
So that's going to cause a delay in the investigation. If they're looking into the death, well, I agree that could be a quicker investigation, but if people lawyer up, that's going to slow it down. And if you're looking into the cultural aspect, they may have to go interview another 190 cadets in this class, then maybe go to the previous class to show that there was some sort of pattern of. So, but I totally agree with you. If there's any sort of malice in this, that there should be the appropriate repercussions.
Of course.
Todd.
Yeah, I'll start with it's got to be about transparency and accountability. And Senator, I applaud your efforts along with the others from your district in seeking that level of transparency. Yes, we have to wait for those answers, but at the same time, I think it's really good to know that the public's watching and the public is demanding answers, and the family, they deserve justice. They have a young man that would only wanted to do good in life, and that was shared by District Attorney Early in his statement during the press conference. And so, for all these reasons, we need to wait with bated breath on the results of the investigation. As Brian mentioned, I ran the defensive tactics program at the Academy, and I reinstituted the boxing program with the caveat there would be controls built in. And I part of the lens I'm looking through is, were those built-in controls ignored? Were those controls that protected recruits, were they overlooked, or were they not taken serious? Those are the areas that are going to show negligence, and to your point, possibly gross negligence. And if those issues are so egregious, you're going to see criminal charges come out of this. So it doesn't matter if it's in training. It doesn't matter if it's on the side of the road. It doesn't matter if it's involved in an investigation. We as an agency have to do better. We have to live up to the people of the Commonwealth's expectations, and if we can do that, then we're a better community. We're a better society. We're safer, and it's a team effort to achieve that. But I've got confidence in Attorney Meyer. I have confidence in the team that he put together, and it's going to be interesting, to say the least, with what those results will yield. And then last point, Senator, you bring up a really good point that due diligence is to go beyond the class of Enrique Delgado-Garcia, to go back and look at other classes. That's the due diligence, to see if there are patterns, to see if this was a single event that happened within Enrique's class. So there's a lot of people to talk to, a lot of people that'll be involved, not to mention the culture, as you also mentioned, sir.
And Todd, I think you brought up a good point. To have a program, and I'm not saying whether boxing should or should not be in there. Again, where the state police are the only ones that have this program. Okay, well, come explain why it's necessary. But also, you made a very valid point about the safeguards. You can have these types of programs, but as long as you have the safeguards, make sure the cadets are safe.
100%.
And that's really as you said, that's really the factor. Were they adhered to or not?
Absolutely. How do you find out? Like, it takes a lot of interviews, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking.
So Todd, I think you're former state police, you've done investigations. You know, it's very important to interview people sooner rather than later, so that their memory is fresh and they don't start hearing. You know, Brian, you said you've seen the tape. I've never seen the tape, but I've heard multiple stories.
Yeah, I just want to make a correction. I have never seen the tape. I know of the tape, and I know when the family viewed the tape, and they will not share what's on that tape. So I just want to make that very clear. I do know that it is a security camera video. I do know that for a fact, and that's all I know in this.
So when you're outside the investigation and government, you know, we've heard all sorts of stories of what supposedly happened, what didn't happen. So, and I think that's the worst thing for the family and even the state police program, because if you're really trying to get back the credibility and the reputation they once had of being the finest in the state and in the country, we got to make sure that there's certain standards that are adhered to.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you talked to the family, Senator Moore?
Yes. Yep, we did. And actually myself and Senator Kennedy and maybe Senator Duran are going to be meeting with them this week again.
Senator, when was the first time that you knew the story when it happened on the 13th, but when were you fully aware of the investigation and the investigative process? Is that something that you had a conversation with David Meyer? Were you involved in any of that?
No, actually, we were getting feedback that there was resistance to hiring an independent investigator. So myself, Senator Kennedy, and Senator Duran actually authored a letter that we actually did a media release on, asking the Attorney General to hire an independent investigator. So there was a delay in that, and where there was a delay, we took it upon ourselves to say, look, this has got to be investigated. Because the DA, Joe Worley, who, you know, rightfully so, excluded himself because of possible conflicts. The cadet, Enrique, worked in his office, so he had to look at ethics issues and conflict of interest. So he called for an independent investigator. So I think it was like maybe 2 weeks where there was a lot of silence on it before the three of us actually put the letter together requesting the independent investigator. Then it was probably like a week after that, or within a week, that it came out in the Globe or the media that they were going to be doing, that they were hiring Mr. Myers.
So I just want to do a follow-up here. So what you're saying was there was an immediate call for an investigation, an independent investigation, and that the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, met with resistance, or was it the Mass State Police that met with resistance?
No, actually, I shouldn't say resistance. There was just a lot of quiet. There was a lot of quiet. I shouldn't say resistance.
Okay.
There just wasn't a lot of, we weren't getting a lot of positive feedback from anyone. Everyone was just, you know, we're going to look into it. We're going to look into it. And then, and they, you know, they very well may have been researching who to hire at that time. But when we didn't hear anything, we then pushed forward, not knowing, because we weren't getting any feedback from the governor's office or the attorney general's office that they were moving forward anything. So that's what, in fear that this was going to just linger, we put the letter together asking for the independent investigator, and then it was shortly after that. But we've never actually have a direct conversation with the attorney general about this, or we've never talked to Mr. Myers about the investigation. So we're kind of at bay, like everyone else is, waiting for the report to come out.
Well, maybe you could push a little bit. You know, it'd be nice to maybe make contact with David Meyer and say, what's the update here? We're almost six months in. And I understand, in all due respect, I know that you might get met with some resistance in saying, you know, we haven't concluded, or this is where we're at, but maybe you can push them a little bit. I mean, I've written daily emails. You know, I'm just a guy here in Massachusetts, but I'm trying to get answers too, because this family deserves it, and Massachusetts deserves it.
Well, and I agree, but this is where we've got a delicate balance. We want to push, but we don't want to jeopardize the investigation.
Sure.
So if there could be criminal charges, and I'm not saying there is, but I got no feedback. If this could go in the direction of criminal charges, we don't want any sort of allegations made of information being released. And if the same thing if it goes civil, I mean, we don't want to jeopardize anyone's due process.
For sure.
So it's a delicate balance we've got to balance right now with trying to be aggressive and pushing forward for it, but then again, not violating anyone's due process or hurting the investigation.
Of course.
Yeah, it's got to play itself out. And the fact that the fact finders, in this case, you have several professionals that have been assembled by Attorney Meyer. We've got to let them do what they do best, and that's to be on a fact-finding mission.
Yeah.
And to the senator's point, that if there is something that comes back that's egregious, this isn't over. This isn't going to be, all wrapped up with the report and everyone goes home. This is going to take on a life of its own, and it's going to enter into our legal system.
And I'm hoping, again, as we talked about earlier, the death investigation, I think all of us could probably agree that probably would be a quicker investigation than the racial or discriminatory practices there, because that could extend to a lot more interviews. So even getting a separation of that would be very important.
Yeah, and the death certificate to date is still open. There's still no conclusion on the death certificate.
Yeah.
That's another part of the investigation. When I do expert witness testimony for use of force cases, I always wait until I can see what do the medical records show. The medical records are either going to corroborate the written reports, the injuries on the body are going to corroborate, or they're going to say they're going to have their own story. And if that's the case, it's going to be an unbiased, unprejudiced story and narrative as to what those injuries, and how those injuries were sustained.
Yeah. I realized I had an audio issue. Brian was telling me in the chat too, private, and I was like, "What's going?" Because I wasn't on mute. It's the new camera. Brian's my tech guy too. My new camera took over the audio. I don't know how that got reset that way. It just StreamYard.
Is that AI?
Yeah, AI took over and changed the settings. But I figured it out. Do I sound better now, everybody?
Much better.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry I screwed up the show at the beginning.
It's fine.
But anyways, we're doing great. We have a great panel here. Todd McGee, Brian from LTL. Make sure you follow Brian if you're not already. A lot of people are. We're both streaming on LTL Media and the Young Jerks. You have 40,000 subs yet?
No, I'm just gonna I need 3 subscribers to get to 38,000 tonight. So I think maybe we'll
yeah. All right, we need 38, and we need 40 too. Like I want to get this Brian from LTL Media to 40,000. Like I don't care if it takes a day or a week. We're here for it because you've been working hard at this, and I really appreciate you being here. And with Todd McGee, your guy, you guys have got like this thing going on. I watch your shows. I love your shows together. I think they're really good. I want to thank Todd McGee for being here and Senator Michael Moore. Do you guys have follow-up questions? I'm sure you do.
I
Like
do.
Todd, do you have questions? Because Brian, I know will be here all night because I can tell already. He's gotten a few in. I want to ask Todd, do you have
Todd,
any questions for the
please.
state senator or the state senator Moore? Do you have any questions for Brian or Todd?
Well, I'll start, Senator Moore. In processing the delicacies of this, could you share more with us, about, if you could, the behind the scenes of, okay, we're going to draft this letter, in knowing the hands that it's going to go through and not really understanding where it's going to end up. How did you process that, you and the other senators?
Well, it's really looking at the family, looking at what's going to benefit the family, what they're going through, and also making sure we're not stoking any PR flames.
Yeah.
We want to make and are not making any allegations of inappropriate conduct. So it's really just putting a letter together, just making sure you're trying to, as I guess you would do with the criminal investigation or an investigation. You just want to deal with the facts. You don't want to make sure, you don't want to inflame the situation and make allegations that are unfounded, and because that's just going to come back and that could jeopardize the whole investigation and the direction. So it's really just, working to try to thinking about what your constituents want, or what's going to benefit the community, the cadets, and coming forward and just say, hey, just give us an open and honest investigation and be transparent about what happened, and don't try to hide anything.
And we've learned from the Karen Reed trial the outcomes of what bad investigations can do.
Yes. Yep. And and that's a good example of how no matter what you do, once something's tainted, and so say, and again, this is not an attack on the state police, but say they had done the investigation first. You've got troopers assigned to the DA's office. You've got troopers assigned to the Attorney General's office that do their investigations for the criminal type investigations. So if they came out with an investigation and then say there's some attack of it, that you can never really get it back. Even if you then go out to an independent investigator, you always have that lingering out there of the credibility and the transparency of everything. So I think bringing someone in right from the start is only going to add credibility to, and again, I hope everyone's exonerated. So it's going to add credibility to the training program. It's going to add credibility to the state police. But if it's not, then we got to deal with what we got to deal with.
That's right.
Senator, I actually have two questions. So just to follow up really quick there, you said, I hope this is, not nefarious and everybody gets exonerated in this and the program can continue. But what if it's not? And let's say there is nefarious, entities in this, maybe cadets or trainers, state police. Where do you go from there? Do you tear apart the whole academy and rebuild this whole process? Or, what is the plan? Have you thought about that yet?
Well, you don't really have a plan until you know what the problem is.
Sure.
Now, if you look at what happened with police reform several years ago, the Post Commission was established to look at these types of situations and also to develop to oversee the training. Maybe maybe if there is some sort of mass issue with the curriculum or a lot of inappropriate training that's going on, or training that's deemed to be not up to date, or they're not looking at the safeguards of the cadets. Maybe that's something we turn the Mass State Police Academy over to the Post Commission and have that fall underneath them. I know New Hampshire, there's a state that has this. They have their state police and local police officers. They all go through the same academy. Maybe you look at that. I don't know. I guess it's really going to depend on what they come back from the investigation. If there's anything egregious, and I hate to use the word simple mistakes, but if there's minor training mistakes being made that can be corrected, okay, then you work with the system. But if not, maybe it takes a complete overhaul. But if there is inappropriate conduct relative to the death, that's got to be evaluated to look at the degree of it and make sure that never happens again and people are held accountable.
And just another quick follow-up question, and of course I'll let the others on the panel if they have anything for you. And just, without not divulging, I guess, too much personal information, but you've said you've had some conversations with the Delgado-Garcia family. What's been kind of the nature of the tone of those discussions when you've spoken with them?
Well, we met with them. Myself and Senator Kennedy met with them right after the funeral. So obviously, at that point, you're trying to console them. You're trying to
Sure.
trying to let them reassure them that we are not going to let this die. That we're going to. So I guess that's a bad term to use. We're not going to let this.
We understand
this investigation go uninvestigated. So, and I will say this: there is a language barrier, so we had to make sure we had a translator there. So, and even to be able to communicate with the family, we've had to make there's some special arrangements that we have to make, and that's one of the reasons that we're meeting this week with them again. So. There's really not too much you can say to them except, we're here for you. We're going to try to make sure that your son's death wasn't a needless tragedy. And I hate to word it this way, but if this death if it was a needless tragedy, I know no one wants to hear that their son or daughter died needlessly, but let's make sure that it wasn't a needless death, and there's only going to be improvements made to the system from what he went through.
Yeah, Brian, I think that one of the immediate remedies is that the boxing program goes away. Unless you can ensure 100% of the time those controls are going to be in place and implemented, the boxing program goes away. And then to the senator's point, I call it the nuclear option because state police take so much pride in their training that the post commission absorbs state police, and that all law enforcement training, regardless of the agency, is underneath the post system. So those are two very, very immediate changes I could see coming out of this.
The key is identifying what the issues are. So
Yes.
that's why this independent investigation is so important. And again, you got to look at the independent investigation hopefully the death, the racial component. There may need to be another special investigation looking into the adequacy of the training. I mean, who knows if this independent investigation shows all these flaws in the system, there may need to be another task force or something set up to make that transition over to the posts. Does it need to be done that way, or does the training need to be updated to the guidelines that we expect today?
I know that there is an RFR has been released. The Commonwealth is looking for consultants to come in and look at the state police curriculum.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much of the scope of work. I would think it would go into the culture as well as the 1,200 hours of training and regimen and in disciplinary aspects, because that's a part of the whole 6-month experience. But that is something that we will probably see in the near future, that a firm has been identified and that there will be and I don't want to call it an investigation because that's not what it is, but it's a review. It's a review of the State Police Academy and its training.
Senator, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, the MPTC. That's been a bit of a scandal there too about the training and the. Former Mass State Police Larry Smith, who unveiled a bunch of a report, been censored, but a lot of city councilors up in Methuen spoke on it. And basically the MPTC has had a lot of issues with training and almost looks like falsifications and things like that, where they're covering up. Have you heard about that, Senator Moore?
Yes, I did. But I don't know if it was the MPTC, the Mass Police Training Council, or if it was the agencies that were submitting information to them. My understanding was I thought the police departments were, I don't want to say falsifying, but
whatever the word is, I should have a word.
So I don't know if it was the MPTC. I think the MPTC helped discover it. I thought it would, and I could be wrong, but I thought it was individual officers of the department that were not submitting the appropriate training records.
Yeah, it was around the training records, and they had looked at a number of different agencies. And ultimately, to the senator's point, each police department is required to submit the required training hours. Let's say it's 40 hours of in-service training each year that veteran officers have to go through. There were officers who were able to circumvent taking those online courses was specifically what the allegations were. So the MPTC is basically a keeper of the records.
Right. So I think that right now, I think the credibility of the MPTC is still there. Now, obviously, if those investigations result to a bigger issue, then that would have to be looked at. But right now, I think that their reputation is still intact. It's what they discovered that was being submitted to them.
Senator, any conversations with Colonel Noble on this subject? Have you had any conversations with him at all? And anything that you can fill in, and maybe some of those conversations. I know a lot of that stuff's probably private, but if you could comment, that would be great.
Yeah, in all honesty, I am not, and I am very fearful about interjecting myself in something that or someone telling me something that could come back later on. So the colonel was not here at that time. I know he's got to deal with that. So what's going on with these various investigations, or as Todd said, assessments of the training. So no one's really, as far as I know, none of us, and I personally have not sat down with the new colonel and asked for any insight from him, because I just don't want to put him in that type of situation.
Brian, you bring up a good point as far as Colonel Noble goes. That was at interim time where the governor was, going through a nationwide search for the next superintendent of the agency. The first time in the Massachusetts history of the Massachusetts that an outside individual was hired. So a lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and that may have contributed to that quiet time that the senator spoke to earlier, where there wasn't much information coming out from out of Framingham, out of General Headquarters. So again, just so many different parts to take into consideration, and all of it impacts the timing of this investigation.
And with all due respect to everybody on the panel, but I'm going to push back here a little bit. I'm going to do this in a very respectful way. Todd, I respect you. Senator Moore, I respect you. Mike, I know you've been so quiet and observing. It's great. I'm going to push back here. That's great. And I understand there's been some quiet time, but he's been hired for the job. He's the man that's in charge of this. And I would feel that now that he's taken over, he would be a little bit more present in these meetings or, amongst this investigation. We haven't really heard anything. I think the thing for me was it would be nice to hear something from our governor, maybe Colonel Noble, the Attorney General. And this is why we have this fantastic senator on right now, because he did what I wanted to hear. He came out and along with his constituents and made this, put this letter out there to give us an update, to say, hey, let's see something here, an update in this investigation. I think it just would have been nice to hear that from our governor or Attorney General, to say, listen, we understand the public's concern about the death of Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia at our training facility. It would have been nice to hear something that, and we haven't. And that's why I want to praise the senator for doing this and getting this out there in public, because I don't want this story to fizzle out. I don't want it to go away. And certainly I hope we get the answers soon. Soon, as much I say soon, but I understand in respect to the investigation, but I just want to get some answers for this family and the citizens of our state.
And Brian, I totally agree with you about that this is about making sure this doesn't fizzle out, and we're not going to let it fizzle out.
Thank you.
But knowing the legal process and what's
slow and frustrating, I understand.
It's frustrating, and the last thing we want to do is rush an investigation, because then when you rush it, and inaccuracy, as Todd mentioned, the Kieran Reed, the last thing you want is an investigation come out that's rushed. And I think sometime today in society, because of computers and everyone expects everything instantly.
Yeah.
And if to do the job thoroughly, you may have to wait a little longer. And I think that's the important part, is making sure it's a thorough investigation. that nothing's overlooked, and it's something that we can all look at. There's credibility to what is done and to the report coming out. And like you said, I'm hoping, and we will keep pressuring them to make sure that the investigation is completed. I'm hoping that at least the tragic death part of it is going to be completed sooner. Now, and I don't even want to bring this up, and I probably shouldn't because it could speculate. There's and Todd, you probably know this. There's two ways of doing investigations. You could be having an investigation done by an independent investigator, or what's being done, and sometimes you can do it through. You can actually do the investigation through a grand jury. So you could have a grand jury sitting and bring in witnesses before them, asking them questions. We don't know which way they're going with this. Is this just an investigation? Do they have one seated? And that just because they have one seated doesn't mean they have to go forward with charges, but it's a little bit more strict in the process. So we don't know.
And Senator, to your point, I think it would be wise that Attorney Meyer is prepared for any direction.
Correct.
Right? You don't want to spend this much time in an investigation only to turn out and say, oh, we're not prepared to go in this other direction here. Right. So you have to bring the full set of possibilities, or at least have an understanding of all the possible scenarios where this investigation could lead you to, that, again, exoneration to negligence, to gross negligence, to, okay, now there's charges. So there's layers to this thing. It takes time. I've seen less serious incidents happen that take a ridiculous amount of time. And in this particular case, there's a young man's life that's on the line here. And so we just need to make sure that accuracy is leading the day.
Absolutely.
I hope so. I hope we get accuracy, transparency, and a proper
and accountability.
Yep. And accountability, yes.
And that's exactly why. And again, no criticism to say, please. That's why we went. Sure. We were recommended outside. The last thing you want to do is have someone investigating themselves. Right. Then the credibility and the accuracy and the integrity of it can be very easily attacked.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad there's an independent investigation. I feel more confident now learning more about David Meyer, and I like his team that he's assembled. I think he hired on 6 additional officials to come into this, and knowing that some of them are former FBI, and with their expertise, I feel they will get to the bottom of this. But the whole thing, again, just like to Todd's credit, transparency and accountability. We need it. I don't want anything hidden in this. I want people to know what exactly happened, a full report with full transparency, so we can feel confident about sending, young men or women into our police academy here in Massachusetts, one of the greatest states, and to make sure that we have, the proper people in those positions to take positions in the state police and be safe when they go through their training.
Can you imagine a family being as proud to have their son or daughter going into the academy, into that career, and then you have this tragedy occur, and then hopefully it's not, the tragedy is not over, it's not by any overzealous training or whatever, that it's just a sad thing that happened, but it's going to be, I can't imagine seeing my son or daughter go into that training and have that happen, and then the happiness go to despair.
Yeah, because
Brian, I'm thinking about the additional investigators brought on. That, again, speculation because we don't know, but that could be indicative of the scope of the investigation is expanding, and that in order, because of the length of time, you need that additional staffing to be able to accommodate the volume of of interviews that are being taken place. So, again, we'll be able to think. Yeah.
Excellent. Great discussion we're having tonight. We just pinned LTL Media at the top of the chat. Please follow him. If you're watching on the Young Jerks channel, we are simulcasting tonight. We're on both channels.
We are.
It's amazing to we wanted to make sure we get it up. I want to thank all the LTL people and all the jerks out there for watching and supporting tonight. Yeah, we could take calls. Do you want to try a couple listener calls, see if we get any calls tonight? You have
Sure.
time, Senator? How long are
Yeah,
you supposed to be here? Yeah.
No? Okay.
Let's throw it. I'm going to throw it down in the StreamYard. Instead of doing phone calls, we're actually going to take StreamYard calls. You don't have to put yourself on the screen, people, but try StreamYard. You just hit the link and we'll bring you up if you have a question or comment tonight. Yeah, this is going to be a tough thing for the family. I just think about the family a lot. You guys are, I know, all focused on the family. What would your message be for the family, like in terms of maybe what they should be doing or support, or even from the audience? Because I know a lot of the audience wants to support the family. So I guess what could we be doing to help the family? And is there anything that you could, even offer to the family? That's like the toughest thing. That's what we all want to do, is support them. But how can we actually do that?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is just show the support, whether it's in the media or social media, when you have posts go out, or it's really hard. I mean, we can all say we empathize with the family, but until you're in that situation, I mean, how do you really know the pain that they're going through? So I think it's just being there and making sure that if the family's in need of something, if they've try to offer you support. I don't know if they've got a GoFundMe for programs for something for the family. If they have something like that, maybe donate to that.
So what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, Mike, if you actually check your private chat, I don't know if you want to pull up the website I created. They can, if anybody's interested in here, they can just use the QR code or go directly at the bottom of the page to the GoFundMe account, and people can donate right there. Would be really great. And again, I'm going to start putting this together here probably in the next few weeks or next couple of months, and we're going to get another billboard up somewhere and keep bringing awareness to this, because as I was saying earlier, I don't want this to fizzle out. I want people to know about this. I want people to remember until we get the full answers as to what happened to Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia.
There it is on the screen. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah,
actually, one thing people could do is, email the Attorney General's office. Email their office, just asking for updates. This way they know it's not just the four of us on this show that are asking this.
Yeah, if you scroll down, Mike, it'll kind of, give you a little brief description of what happened. And then if you go to the bottom of the page, you can go to the bottom of the page, and it has links there. We have a counter. That's the Days Without Answers counter. And then if you want to demand answers, here are the appropriate contacts that you can reach out to. And then you can support the family there just by clicking those photos. So that's a little website that it's simplified. People can reach out to the contacts here. And I'm planning on doing some work on it. Maybe we'll get the senator's letter up there and just let people know, the public know that, we have a few wonderful senators that are, asking, again, just like us, for questions and asking for answers into this case.
Yeah, Mike, two things come to mind. The first for you and Brian, where you have these platforms, continue to spread the truth, continue to sort through the rumor mill, continue to bring on the knowledgeable people within the Commonwealth that even if they don't have all the answers, they at least know the truth. And that's what I love both about what you and Brian, and I'm going to add Mazza Media to this, is that you guys bring, you do your very best effort in keeping things transparent and accurate, whether it's this case or the others that you guys highlight. That's going to be incredibly important moving forward. And then the second, and Brian, I shared this with you early on when this news first broke, that if the family hasn't done so already, they should consider an independent medical examiner.
I agree. And Dr. Michael Bowden would be great in this situation. As we know, his work with the Sandra Birchmore case. And now look, we have Farwell where, right now he belongs. And this is a federal investigation, rightfully so. So yeah, it'd be really great to have someone like
Absolutely.
that step in. And Todd,
So-
thank you so much for those kind words, because this was something that I didn't want to get smeared like other things have that we've covered here in the state of Massachusetts in cases. And my whole thing was, it's not going to happen to this guy. We heard a lot of rumors about medical conditions, and it was a brain aneurysm, and all of that has been false. It's all been cleared up by the family. Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia did not have any prior medical conditions going into the academy. He was cleared by his physician to join the academy and participate full contact. So we know that he was an avid runner, and his physical condition was up to the standard of the Mass State Police to join. So there was a lot of that going around, and I just felt like, not this time. We're going to squash that. We're going to look into it. We're going to get direct answers from the family and keep the record straight here with the information that we can source and the information that's been, put out to the public through the media, like ourselves, Mike, myself, Mazza Media, and, who we call the mainstream media, the local media sources.
Todd,
We
can
also,
I
yeah,
ask a question?
oh, go ahead.
And it just came to me as Brian was talking. When you had said you helped bring back the program, but with guidelines, why was, can I just, your opinion, why was boxing brought back, and what did it replace? Was it a self-defense class that it replaced, or was it?
Yeah, so just kind of the history, the boxing program at its inception never had any goals and objectives. It was a time in the academy where usually the largest recruit was matched up against the smallest recruit, and then there would be a crunch. And it was more of an entertainment value than an actual learning outcome.
Okay.
So when there was we were having discussions about bringing the boxing program back, it was agreed that it should not be brought back under its own set of guidelines and curriculum. It had to be brought back under an existing program. The one that makes sense was the defensive tactics curriculum. That's where I come in. I was a coordinator.
Okay.
I said, okay, if we bring it back, there has to be controls. Brian brought up Enrique's medical condition, that he was a healthy 20-something-year-old young man. Along with his medical condition, the medical unit at the State Police Academy had to clear each and every recruit in order to participate in the boxing exercises. If they were compromised in any way, they were not allowed to participate. If there was a recruit that had prior boxing experience to the level of golden gloves, amateur level of boxing, they were not allowed to participate, because what's the objective? They already have the skill set, right?
Yeah.
They've already been in some type of controlled confrontation. Our motivation for bringing back the boxing program was to ensure that recruits, the first time that they got into some type of a conflict, was not out in the street with a gun and a baton and pepper spray around their waist, and either they overreact and they use excessive force because they panic, or they cower away and get themselves hurt because they don't know how to defend themselves. So
I guess along that line, so why not a self-defense moves rather than boxing?
And even with the self-defense moves, there's no impact. It's you go, then I go. You practice a technique, then I practice a technique. In moving to the confrontation part of it, it was a controlled confrontation, 1 2-minute rounds, and that was it. No one's hand gets raised at the end. The objective was not to see a winner. The objective was to go through the exercise. Okay. So again, if you can't guarantee those controls, the boxing program, it will be no longer. And I think that's on at least the pathway I see, that this is going to be one of the remedies.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mueller. He's a retired law enforcement officer, North Carolina State Highway Patrolman. Let's bring him up and see what he's got for us tonight.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're live on the show. What do you have for us tonight?
We have boxing in our academy, and the reason we have it is some people has never gotten a fight. So what we did 30 years ago is we boxed 2 3-minute rounds, and we were matched up people to our size and weight and all that. So if you stop punching, the clock stopped. So we had a doctor present, and I believe they even recorded it. But anyway, I want to ask the senator a question. Have y'all thought about going behind closed doors? I know most of y'all are in charge of committees and all. Go behind closed doors and ask the lead investigator where he's at, because, you know, he's getting paid by the taxpayers. How many days a week is he working on it? I mean, I would think y'all would want to get him behind closed doors and ask him, where you at on this investigation? I mean, you know, it's been since September. I mean, how long is it going to go?
Well, that's what we did, the goal of the letter. But the legislature right now, with the constitutional office, which is separate from the legislature, is the attorney general. So the questions that you're asking, those are something that David Myers, the independent investigator, they would be dealing with the attorney general, and the attorney general hopefully is asking those questions. That's why we sent our letter to her as the intermediary, where they're overseeing the independent investigator. And as you know, we having direct contact with legislators, all you need is the independent investigators to make one accidental mistake, or a statement gets said and, you know, it's in the media. So it's really trying to protect the integrity of this, that we are going to the attorney general who's overseeing it and making sure she is doing just what you're saying.
Okay, I'll say this, I'll let somebody else call in. It's hard for me to believe that a cadet died, and it took 2 weeks to start an investigation or whatever. We had a cadet here died in 1988 through boxing, and they done an autopsy, and he had a heart condition. They were in there the very minute he was knocked down. They went to the hospital, and within 30 to 45 days, they completed the investigation. So I ain't saying that they're dragging their feet here, but I think they need to pick it up a little bit, you know?
I don't disagree with you. So, and that's why that's why we're reaching out. And when I say the 2 weeks, that was the 2 weeks on getting an independent investigator. Just as you're saying, obviously upon the death, the body was then being transported to a state medical examiner. Those types of investigation had already started, but any sort of, you know, I don't want to say a criminal investigation, but an overall investigation, because it was within the district attorney of Worcester's jurisdiction. We had the issue of a conflict of interest because the cadet had worked for him, lived in his area, and also then his investigators were the state police. So normally the DA's office would have been in there much sooner, but because he was trying to maintain some ethical values in position, so that there couldn't be any sort of conflict claims, that may have delayed what normally would have been a quicker investigation.
Right. Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carolina. Good call.
Good call.
Yeah,
Great
perfect. Call. So we've been live for a little while now, over an hour. Do you guys have any final questions or thoughts that you even want to bring up tonight? Brian's probably got about 10 more, so we can go to Brian first. And what do you got, Brian? And then we can think about Todd and Senator Moore.
Of course. Again, Mike, thank you for hosting this. Todd McGee, of course, a great friend of mine. We've had come together through the cases that we have discussed here, and he's been a great contributor to my channel. So my hat's off to you, sir. I don't have my hat on today, but my hat's off to you. Senator Moore, thank you so much for taking the time and being on this panel with us, being transparent, and thank you for raising awareness and kind of, I always say, like, rattling the cage, writing that letter, making it public, because when I heard about this, it just put a smile on my face, because it's everything that I've been trying to do here. When I first heard about this, I started raising awareness about it on all my social media accounts, my Facebook, my X account, Twitter account, and then my actual YouTube channel. That just didn't seem enough. So we organized the first non-family Enrique Delgado-Garcia standout. I made a sign, and I stood there with a sign on the corner for a couple of hours. I wanted people to bring awareness to the case. I felt like that wasn't enough. So I rented some billboards and put them out in front of one of the grandest places on earth at Gillette Stadium. I wanted everybody to see, and that simple, we had that website pulled up, just that simple message, what happened to Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. I wanted people to know about this. And I still feel it's not enough. And I guess, I'm kind of the squeaky wheel waiting for the grease here. But I commend you. Thank you for writing that letter. I'd love for you to come back and do this panel again, maybe, in a few weeks or a couple months, just to give us some update.
Sure.
And thank you. I do really appreciate it. I just want this family to get justice. I feel for them. I'm in contact with them pretty regular. I tend not to bother them too much, but I'll reach out and just ask, like, how are things? There's anything that I can do for you? Any updates? And thank you for raising awareness. Really, I do mean that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, you have done so much for this. You really have. I know. I did this for like Lorna McMurray. That Senator Moore knows about this with the medical cannabis patient that died.
Yes.
And I know how it is, and you've taken it on. This has been your thing. So that's why I'm quiet tonight, because I want you to get you're the man on this. I'm like crying right now. Like, thank you.
We
Thank you,
all
Brian.
are. We all are. And and listen, I don't want to dog our police entities in the state. I truly believe in my heart that I know there are good police officers out there. We have one of them on our panel that doesn't BS, and he's transparent and probably had a fine career and loved what he did and took care of people. I truly believe in my heart that there are good police officers out there, but we need more of them. We need more of people like Delgado-Garcia. And it's tragic that his life was cut so short, weeks from graduating the academy and being able to go out and serve our community in a righteous way and do the right thing. That's always what I heard about in learning about him, was he did the right thing. And I want to make sure that when our young men and women join that academy and join our police forces in Massachusetts, that they are safe and they'll be able to get through this training program and go out and serve our community in a positive way, because God, we need that right now. We need it right now desperately.
Phenomenal. We have two streams going on tonight. There's the Young Jerks and there's LTL. We get the same program on both. We got a lot of viewers right now, which is phenomenal. In the Young Jerks chat, our moderators are phenomenal. They're posting all the links. We had LTL's linked up, his Twitter, and then his YouTube. We want you to follow. They've also been throwing in the links to the state senator's page, so you can find all information to contact him, as well as Todd McGee's company. Right now in the chat, we have pinned in the Young Jerks chat the fund for Enrique, his family. You want to support that family, please check that out and make a donation. We'd love to see donations. Last night we had a record show in the Young Jerks. I just want to thank everybody. I've been writing envelopes out for these little stickers that we gave out, and we raised a lot of money for the Karen Reed Defense Fund, which I'm proud to do. And a lot of you supported it last night. I'd like to see the same thing for Enrique's family. I'd like to see money getting kicked in. So I hope you could do that. You guys, what's your final thoughts? I guess we'll go to Todd McGee now, right?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. For both you and Brian, again, just please keep doing what you're doing. Bringing on, the right people to try and bring some clarity, to your audiences and to anyone that's willing to listen. Senator Moore, I applaud your efforts, sir, and Senator Durant, Senator Kennedy, in all of your efforts for your constituents in your part of the state. That's the kind of leadership that we need. As far as my former agency goes, I had a wonderful 24-year career. Not every day was butterflies and rainbows, but it took care of my family. And I can name hundreds of good men and women that put the uniform on every day, that do the right thing and go to work and make the Commonwealth proud. But the 1%ers, we got to call you out. We got to call you out. There's no room for you. And newsflash, good cops don't want to work with bad cops. So find another job, move on, and let the good men and women in the Commonwealth do what they do best. And that's protect and serve our citizens of Massachusetts.
All
Thanks
set.
so much, Todd McGee, former Massachusetts State Trooper. You do training now. Can you tell us your website? We have it. We did put it up on the screen. It has been posted tonight. But if people want to contact you, how would they contact you? Especially if they wanted to use your training, your police training services.
Yeah, you can find me easy enough on LinkedIn. Todd McGee on the LinkedIn platform, as well as my website, 508group.com. Certainly willing to share any thoughts I can for anyone in need. But again, just happy to be here on this platform, both LTL Media and Young Jerks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd. And Senator Michael Moore, what would your final thoughts be tonight?
Just thank you for paying attention and not forgetting. From on my end and my colleagues' end, it's very easy for us. Well, I think it's very easy for us to send this letter and to bring the issue up. But it's we only get success when we have a grassroots effort or the community gets involved and helps us. If it's just the three of us and no one else is putting pressure on other elected officials, then it's easy for it to get forgotten about. So that's why it's so important when you asked me to come on the show about this. That's why it's so important for us to stay active and stay out here and make sure that it's not just me and two other people. Because that's what it is. Senators or representatives was just two other people, three of us. And if it's just the three of us doing it and no one else is pushing, things can get forgotten about. This is where we really need the support of individuals like yourself to come forward and to keep the pressure on. Mike, as you were talking, not to change topics, but I was thinking about the Cannabis Control Commission, when we first met, and all the problems going on there. And when I was turning around here, I was trying to look for that award you gave me, the glass. So it's nice being on here, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm more than happy to come back again on this issue or any other issue.
And hopefully, is that getting any better for the workers over there, the Cannabis Control Commission? Because it's been chaos over there. And
yeah, it's I hope the Enrique investigation does not take the same path as the CCC.
What happened there?
Yeah, that's been it's there's still problems there. There's someone else. There's a new employee now that's come out and filed a lawsuit. So it's I don't even think they have the commission fully staffed yet. So
one of the best things about that is we got this show. I think I'm going to claim responsibility for it. We chased TrueLeaf, the company that was the worst company in my opinion, and they're just another scandal today about them. We chased them out of the state. They left the state. They were so afraid of what we were uncovering, they actually just left. So that was probably the best thing. The family, I think, was happy when that happened. They were very happy. That was Lorna McMurray, and she's still seeking justice. I know that she has a big suit against them. I want to thank you, Senator Moore, because you did a similar thing for that family too. I know that you're someone that cares about workers and injustice and holding people a little bit, like sending a letter. I love that. That's like a thing that our friend Attorney Betterow does. He sends a letter. I think it's great that what you're doing, and I hope that we can all support you. We posted your website, what do they call that? The government page.
Yeah, yep. It's the government page, and then you have to go to the state legislature, then to the Senate, and then the Senate you'll find my page.
I hope people contact all their state reps too about this, and to ask them to maybe write a letter, right? To get a little more active on it. Thank you all. I want to thank you all.
An email would be great.
So what was that?
An email would be great.
Email. Yeah, send an email. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm sure the family is very happy about, all of you tonight, and very good. All the people watching, and congratulations to Brian. We did get you over 38,000, right?
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Everyone needs to support Brian. Brian kicks in. That's what I love about Brian. Brian, you throw down all the time for the community and people, and I just really appreciate you. You too, Todd McGee, and you too, Senator Moore. This is what I loved about the show tonight, and I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. We're the Young Jerks. I think we're gonna head out now. I just want to acknowledge any super chats that came in. And again, I want to make sure that you do follow Brian from LTL. Make sure you're following his YouTube. Thank you so much, Jersey Jen, tonight. Thank you, Nikki. These are on the Young Jerks super chats tonight. Michelle. I want to thank MJ. Thank you all for the super chats tonight. And I just want to make sure that if you're watching the Young Jerks, we have a show on Wednesday night. Young Jerks Wednesday night. We have a big show. We have an attorney, Carl Steinbeck, coming back on the show. A criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, also involved in military law. He's a very serious person. This will be his second time coming back on the show. Tomorrow, definitely going to be broadcasting the Karen Reed court dates tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Also, later tomorrow night, we'll also be live covering the Canton Select Board and live streaming. I'm going to have Boston Mike on here. We're going to have a conversation about Canton Select Board, the election. So there's a lot happening. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and like the Young Jerks and LTL. He's got a lot of shows upcoming as well. Make sure you check them out. And Mazza Media. I think the three of us, if you gotta subscribe to me, you gotta subscribe to all of them too. Thank you so much for everything you all have been doing, watching, supporting. We're gonna have a good week and a good year. Let's continue to do what we do. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.